I'm Olivia. This is my recommendations channel. I'm doing recommendations of books that I've really enjoyed reading. Today's book is Scout's Honor by Lily Anderson. I love this book. I've read this one several times and it's just such a good book. Anyway, the next one I'm going to do is one that I've read even more. Anyhow, so this is the last one that I have today that I've written a script for. I tried writing a script for the next one, and it ended up being just a recap of everything that happens in the book. So I'm like, let me just spitball it. And the next one, I'm going to spitball that one as well. So I've got my little co-host here, Mila. I want to warn you the same thing that I warned the last video, which is that Alex has moved home with the ride or die, who does not have a pseudonym yet. So it's just so far Friend. And Friend is, and Alex would love to be friends with Mila. Mila is terrified of Alex. So if Alex needs to come in and use the restroom, Mila's going to lose her absolute mind. So I just want to warn you. We're in my bedroom, which you can kind of see the orangey color through there. It's a pretty bright orange, and people are always like, because everybody who visits my house has to use my en-suite bathroom, and my ear is itching. I don't want to scratch it on camera. So anyway, I don't want, they use my en-suite bathroom, so everybody who's visited me at home is like, ooh, they all have opinions about my bedroom. It's a pretty bright color, but it's, Mila, what the heck? But it's a pretty bright color, and everybody has opinions, but it makes me happy. So it is it's what I'm going to do. Our theme color is our, like contrasting color is the cyan. The curtain actually has cyan in it too, but it's too long and pulls on the floor, so I've got it. I'm holding it on with paper clips right now until I can get my act together to shorten it. And once I can shorten it, then I can kind of group it together so you can see more of the cyan on the thing. My area rug is not actually cyan; it's more of just a plain blue, but it looks pretty good together, I think. And then I've got my sewing table here, so we're going to do sewing eventually. But right now, Scout's Honor. I'm never sure how much detail to put into these. I watch booktubers, I guess, and they go into a lot of the plot points and such. And as I'm kind of the reader who's in for the journey, I don't know. Should I go into this kind of detail, or should I be more circumspect? Ooh, there's a good word. Back to this book. Prudence Perry is Legacy Ladybird Scout. The Ladybirds are best known for their charity knitting, free car washes, and free breakfasts before standardized tests. But that's just their cover. The Ladybird Scouts exist to protect the world from mollygrubs. What's a mollygrub? A mollygrub is an incursion into our dimension of creatures which are drawn to emotion. Dreary Blight is drawn to sadness, the Scranch to anger, the Knockjaw to happiness, Frightworms to, well, just like it says on the tin, fear, and Tizzy Lice to apprehension. When they first arrive in our dimension, it's easy to banish mollygrubs back to their dimension. All it takes is touching them with a peppermint leaf. In fact, the Ladybird Scouts have their own brand of Pippy-Mint peppermint plants. As they stay longer, they begin to eat our emotions. This leads the humans to having a sort of emotional catharsis. However, then the mollygrubs get bigger, and they occasionally begin to eat each other. Once they've eaten enough, their eyes change from black to white, and they are here until their root, an organ between their eyes, is removed. The word mollygrub comes from colonial days, for colic or sullenness. They keep saying colonial with no explanation for which colonies are where. I keep forgetting about the signs, like that this book is set in California, such as the fact that the book actually says it's set in California, in favor of thinking the book said like Australia for some reason. The book is set in the summer, but there's no mention of like Christmas, so I don't know where I get this idea. I think it's because colonial times were way more recent in Australia than they were here, since Australia became an independent country 100 years ago, 120, versus 1770, I guess 8, because the end of the Revolutionary War for the United States. So the Ladybird Scouts seem to be from colonial days as well, but I think the Ladybird Scouts doesn't sound very colonial, so yeah, Australia. Most people don't know about mollygrubs. Only those with the sight, capital S, can see them. Some, like Prue and her cousin Chancho, were born with the sight. Others, like Prue's father, can be given the sight by, well, eating a mullet grub. Nowadays, the Ladybird Scouts make a tea of grubs that new recruits can drink, but in the past, new recruits would just, well, eat a grub. How this was discovered is a mystery. We never get an explanation. Now, before they're given the tea, the recruits are not actually told what purpose the tea serves until they see their first grub, which is done right on site with a trap that has been baited to capture a grub. What happens is that if the recruit changes their mind after seeing the grub, they're given another tea called the tea of forgetting, which takes the sight away. And herein is the motivation for the entire plot of this book. Prue is a legacy, so she was born with the sight, so she doesn't regret getting the sight, she does regret having it. 3 years before the beginning of the book, Prue and the rest of her Ladybird Scout circle, Faithlin, Gabby, Jenica, and Molly, were tracking a large carnivore grub. They found it, and Molly, inspired by Prue, who was her best friend, tried to take the grub's root out herself. Molly ended up being eaten by the grub. So now Prue has PTSD. She quit the Ladybird Scouts and wants more than anything else to lose the sight, but only dames, the leaders of the troop of Ladybird Scouts, can order it from the catalog. The action of the book begins when Prue's sneaking back in after going trespassing with Chancho, her boyfriend Kyle, and their two best friends, Paul and Sasha, who calls herself the Beast. Her mother catches her and sentences her to teaching her cousin Aviana, who is also born with the sight, the basics of being a ladybird. If she doesn't comply, her mom, who's superintendent of Prue's school district, will send her to an all-school girl for the rest of her high school career. Prue accepts her punishment, but then it occurs to her if she succeeds, she will, even if just temporarily, be a dame and be able to order a dose of the tea of forgetting for herself. So she agrees. She has to interview with a position with her old dame, Debbie, who is also Faithlin's mom. She barely passes and sets up the tea party that will begin her time as a temporary dame. There's a wrinkle, though. She won't just be training her cousin, she'll also be training Kyle's younger sister, Kelsey. Kelsey wasn't born with the sight, so she will need the tea that grants the sight. Prue really, really doesn't want to do this. She sees the sight as a curse. But she does it because if she doesn't, there'll be no tea of forgetting for her. There's a say in the Ladybird Scouts. Perfect keeps a secret, almost spills the beans. And Prue spills the beans. After Kelsey gets the sight, Prue takes what she calls the baby birds into the house for an explanatory video. While they're inside, Chancho comes over with Paul and Sasha to bum some snacks, and they get into the tea. Now Paul and Sasha have the sight. This means Prue's whole circle, only Kyle doesn't have the sight. This will cause a lot of stress for Prue. Soon after the tea, Prue's mom tells her that she'll be training a third baby bird. None other than Sasha. Fortunately, Sasha just tells Mom that she already has the sight without telling her how she got it. Thus begins the tale of how Prue is expected to train the 3 baby birds to be full steel-certified ladybirds. Basically, you're allowed to use wooden knitting needles to banish mullet grub, to get rid of mullet grubs with eyes, with roots, until you're allowed to use, once you graduate from that, you're allowed to pick a steel weapon that you can use. So she has to get all 3 of them steel certified so she can leave Ladybird Scouts behind her. Oh, there you go. Oh, I didn't mention steel certification. Until steel certified, Ladybird Scouts are only on those peppermint leaves and wooden needles. I don't think there's anything else. Oh, Prue's weapon of choice was dual-wielded daggers, which she used to keep in holsters on her thighs. Her mom buys her new wrist cheese for them to mark her new position as a temporary dame. Prue's grandmother uses axes, which were buried with her, and Prue's Aunt Lo, Chancho and Avi's mom, uses punch-activated claws, which don't look nearly as cool as they sound. As the baby birds get more experience, Prue is pressured to move them through the material faster. Then they have one of the legendary free car watches, which is an excuse to search people's car for grubs. Other circles of ladybirds come to meet the baby birds, and Faith Lynn's circle of ladybirds come as well to size up the newbies that will join their circle. And Faith Lynn's car is infested with tizzy lice. Soon a girl disappears from the park where Molly was killed, which ratchets up the tension on Prue and means these new, not yet steel-certified scouts have to go on dawn patrol banishing grubs for real. Anderson's Girls Social Club history was in the Campfire Girls, which used to be very appropriative of Native American culture. I was stuck in the Girl Scouts. My mom wanted me to have a wider social circle. The town I grew up on was served by two school districts, which meant that half the girls in my juniors troop went to that other district, which had totally different programs, teachers, etc. In cadets, all of the girls in my troop belonged to that other district. I lack a natural inability to jump into ongoing conversations, and by the end of my time in cadets, they'd all gone boy crazy. I'm ace, so I couldn't participate at all by then. I literally would cry because I didn't want to go, and my mom seemed to think that her plan to broaden my friendship horizon was working because of my discomfort, so she pushed even harder. Apparently, the Girl Scouts are more inclusive now, with allowing trans girls, something would never have flown in my era. I suspect a non-boy crazy neurodivergent girl would probably find a more comfortable niche than I did, at least on behalf of today's baby aces. I hope so. So back to the book. As the book progresses, Prue faces pressure to get the Baby Bird's non-combat related charms. Where the Girl Scouts have those sewn-on badges, Lady Bird Scouts have a charm bracelet. All of Prue's charms are combat related. In fact, that's probably why Dame Debbie was unimpressed by Prue's application to lead the circle, and Faithlin was downright nasty about it. This leads them to, for example, do a life-saving unit led by Paul, since Paul can see what they're trying to defeat. As the book progresses, it becomes more and more tense. Prue hates keeping secrets from Kyle, the SEAL certification test comes closer, and Prue fears the baby birds won't be ready for it. And then there's the carnivore in the park. Now, for the spoilers. You know the drill if you've been here before. If you don't want spoilers, this is where you leave. Bye. I'll see you later, I hope. If you have any books you want to recommend for me to check out, please leave them in the comments. Like, share, subscribe, all those things. So, spoilers. The baby birds pass their SEAL certification test on a technicality. They banish the grub by stabbing it at the side rather than by taking out its root. Prue gives Kyle the sight by making him eat some of an actual grub. At first, Kyle, who is very into cryptozoology, wants to make friends with the grubs, but eventually he realizes they truly are a threat and supports Prue and the recently minted Lady Bird Scouts. And well, remember the grub? When they ate that scout? You see, Faithlin has gone a little mad with the desire to take the all-time never-to-be-defeated record for the largest grub root ever. To that end, they've been feeding grubs to a carnivore they've been kept trapped in the park ever since Molly's death. And Dame Debbie has no idea, because she ordered the tea of forgetting for Prue. Prue never knew about it, but her mother was so against the idea of Prue drinking the tea that she never got it. You know who did, though? Dame Debbie. That's why the baby birds passed on the technicality, because the dame who was judging them didn't see how it happened. Oh, this is the point where I realized I'm going to have to rethink how I do these scripts, because I've missed several important plot points here. I hesitate to go back and read the book a third time to try to catch them. I wrote this before I wrote the one for the last video I did. I think I'll take turns reading and writing for the next one, which, if all goes as planned, is going to be The Dissonance by Sean Hamill. Maybe switching every chapter, since The Dissonance goes back and forth through the 1990s and 2010s, maybe we switch back and forth. Anyhow, at the very end, Prue, her mom, and Tia Lo realize that things have to change. Prue wants to change the focus of Lady Bird Scouts from sweeping cars for grubs to teaching mindfulness so the grubs aren't drawn into their dimension in the first place. Prue's mom and Tia Lo thinks that's a great idea, but it won't happen anytime soon. However, there's another change that Prue would like that is easier. She wants to start including boys in the Lady Bird Scouts. The book ends with Prue leading a larger group of Lady Bird Scouts, which now includes Chancho, Paul, and Kyle. And Prue finally does get her tea of forgetting, but finally, she doesn't want to forget. It was such a good book. I really, every book I read, every book I talk to you about is something I recommend. But I really enjoyed this one. Again, Scouts Honor, Lily Anderson. It's another one that I have. I think it's also a first printing. I love going to the bookstore now because I'm getting so many books in first printing. Back in the day, I used to wait for stuff to come out in mass market paperbacks. And now, I guess because of my arthritis, it's actually so much easier to read the bigger hard copies and hardcovers and mass market and trade paperbacks. Much easier for me to read. I've got to go back through all those mass market paperbacks and figure out what the heck I'm going to do with those. Anyway. So, I enjoyed this time with you. I hope you have a good day, and I'm posting everything on, as I always have, I'm posting things on Thursdays. So, we will see you again next Thursday. Bye-bye for now.